It's Woodford Sunday School, and today we'll be learning about the lost parables from Luke chapter 15. Jesus once told the people this parable. There was once a man who had 100 sheep. He loved his sheep so much, and he had named every one. One day, as he was doing his daily counting of the sheep, he realized one of them was missing. It was Sheila. She was always wandering off and getting lost, and he knew that if he didn't find her soon, she was in danger of being eaten by something scary, like a lion, or a tiger, or a bear. Oh my! The shepherd knew that his other 99 sheep were safe and accounted for, so he left them in their yard and headed out to find Sheila. The shepherd walked for a long time, searching and calling Sheila by name. He crossed grassy plains. Sometimes the grass was over his head, but Sheila was nowhere to be found. He climbed rocky hills. Once he accidentally set off a landslide. Sheila was nowhere to be found. He waded through murky mud pits. The shepherd thought he saw a crocodile at one point. He splashed out of there super quick. But Sheila was nowhere to be found. The shepherd was getting pretty hungry, and he wanted to sit down and eat some Vegemite sandwiches, but he knew that Sheila was out there, somewhere, by herself, probably scared and lonely and wishing she was back with her flock, being cared for by her shepherd. So he didn't stop to eat his Vegemite sandwiches. He kept looking. He looked under brambly bushes. He peered into dark caves. He even squinted up into leafy tree branches, even though he knew that sheep can't climb trees. But Sheila was nowhere to be found. After searching for a whole day and night, the shepherd finally stumbled across Sheila. She was trapped in a fence, with her fleece stuck in the barbed wire. She was cold and wet and had scratches on her back from where she'd tried to escape, but she was found. The shepherd was overjoyed to find her. He loved Sheila and had been so worried about her. He unstuck her from the fence, lifted her up onto his shoulders and carried her home. When the shepherd and Sheila arrived back at the house, the shepherd texted all his friends and neighbours. "Come over and celebrate with me," he wrote. "Sheila was lost, but now she's found." Jesus said to the people, "If you think the shepherd was happy about finding his lost sheep, that's nothing to how God feels about a sinner who turns to him." He told another story with a similar message. There was once a woman who had 10 silver coins. She kept them very safe, checking on them hourly, always carefully putting them back in her coin purse after she'd counted them. One day she pulled them all out as usual and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, hang on, I must have counted wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh no, one is missing. The woman quickly tipped the coins back into the purse and then started to think about where the coin might have gone. Had she left it in her pocket? No, it wasn't there. Had it fallen out of her pocket into the washing machine? No, it wasn't there either. Perhaps it had fallen down the back of the couch. No, it wasn't there. The coin was good and lost. Maybe she dropped it on the floor somewhere. She quickly started searching, looking under all the tables, behind every pot plant. She turned all the lights on in the house, including the old mustard yellow lamp that was her grandmother's and didn't really get used. She fetched her broom and started sweeping. Behind the bin, she found a button that had fallen off her jumper a year ago. Under the fridge, she found a mouldy old meatball that must have rolled off her dinner plate at some stage. Behind the piano, she found a Game Boy from the 90s, but no silver coin. Finally, after hours of searching, the woman found her silver coin. Do you know where it was? It was in her bag, next to her coin purse. How embarrassing. But the woman was so happy to have found her lost coin that she didn't care about embarrassment. Instead, she called her friends and neighbours to tell them the good news. Jesus said, "There is so much joy in heaven from God and the angels about any person who repents." The last story that Jesus told that day was about 2 lost sons. He said, "There was once a man who had 2 sons. The oldest son was a hard worker who helped out his father on the family farm and saved all his money. The youngest son was a bit lazy, not very thrifty, and liked playing instead of working. One day, the younger son said to his father, "Dad, I'm not cut out for this farm life. Can you please give me my share of the inheritance early so that I can make my own life?" His dad was pretty sad, but he did as the younger son asked and gave him his share of the will. A few days later, the younger son was gone, driving off in his shiny red car for a life of lights and glamours and parties. At first, everything was going pretty well. The younger son was living the high life with lots of friends who only really liked him for his money, as much McDonald's as he could eat, which wasn't very healthy, and lots of expensive toys, like a remote-controlled plane, which he crashed and broke the first day he had it. But eventually his money ran out. And when his money ran out, his fair-weather friends ran out too. Before you could say serves him right, he was living in a run-down unit on the bad side of town, with leaks in the ceiling and musty-smelling carpet. "My money's gone and I'm living in a dump," the boy thought to himself. "I need a job." So he looked on Seek.com until he found something, a job feeding pigs. By this stage, the youngest son was pretty hungry. He hadn't had any McDonald's for weeks. The food he was feeding to the pigs was looking pretty good about now. He'd just decided to try a little when he suddenly remembered something. Wait, hold the phone. My father's servants are fed plenty. Why am I here starving when they're all there well fed? Then and there, the youngest son came up with a plan. He decided that he would go home, but not as a privileged son. He knew he didn't really deserve that title. Instead, he would ask his dad for forgiveness and then ask to be a servant, not a son. He left the pigs in the field and started the long walk home. Meanwhile, back at the farm, the oldest son was still working hard, and while his father really appreciated that and loved him, he still missed his youngest son. Every day before he started work, before he'd had brekkie even, he would stand out on the veranda and look down the long, dusty road towards the city. And every day he would hope that today would be the day that he would see his son driving towards him in his shiny red car. Today was not that day. There was no shiny red car driving towards him with a cloud of dust behind, but there was something. A small speck in the distance. What was it? Someone out for a jog, racking up steps on their Fitbit perhaps? Or maybe one of the neighbour's children waiting for the school bus? But no, the speck was getting larger. It was someone heading this way. The father didn't dare hope that it might be his long-lost son, but as the speck got larger and larger, the father started to make out some details. And suddenly, he did dare to hope. It was his son. He flung himself down the steps of the veranda, dashing for the road. The father sprinted as fast as he could, faster than he'd run in years. He had the vague thought in the back of his mind that he might do a hammy, but this didn't deter him. He kept running. Finally, with his arms outstretched wide, he crashed into his son, and they both tumbled to the ground in a tight embrace. "Dad," said his youngest son, "I am so sorry for how I acted. I know I don't deserve to be called your son anymore, but I would love to be counted as one of your But his dad cut him off. He shouted up to the house where a servant was waiting, "Bring some food and water, and while you're at it, grab some clothes. My poor boy is wearing rags. And then organize a party. We're celebrating. It was like my son was dead, and now he's alive again. He was lost, and now he's found." So the servants put a party together, inviting everyone they knew. The oldest son had been out working the paddock. He was tired and hungry because he'd been out all day, but when he got close to the house, he could hear the beat of loud music and could see disco lights flashing around out on the deck and people dancing. "What's going on?" he thought to himself. When he got inside, he saw one of the servants walking past with a tray of mini sausage rolls. "What's happening?" he asked the servant. "Why is there a party?" "Your brother has come home," the servant replied, "and your father's organised a party for him because he's home safe and sound." The older brother got very angry and left in a huff. He didn't think his youngest brother deserved anything after he'd spent his whole childhood being lazy and then his whole adulthood partying and wasting all his money. His father found him out in the barn, sulking. He tried to get him to come in and say hello to his younger brother, but his oldest son refused. "Dad, I've worked hard for you on the farm for years. I've always done exactly as you asked, but you've never thrown a party for me. But as soon as this son of yours came home, who spent all your money on stupid things and wasting his life, You've thrown a party." His father looked at him with love in his eyes. He clasped him on the shoulder and said, "Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we are and should be overjoyed because it was like your brother was dead, and now he's alive again. He was lost, and now is found." The end.